Welcome to September's Maythorn Monthly. It's Brian Smart here. Everything's new this month. We've got a new Prime Minister, we've got a new monarch, I've got a new blue Yeti microphone. Everything else is just the same. And I'm not going to appear in camera this month, apart from just to wave to you at the beginning. And we're going to just press on, and I'm going to talk into this microphone for the whole programme, because I'm enjoying it so much. So first, let's go to Spain and see what our nightlife was like there. This is the Dragon, which hasn't been open since the early days of Marina d'Or, but it's the place where we spent a lot of our evenings. It's right by the Chinchilla Bridge, and just around the corner from there is the main street, where of course there's floats on Fridays and Saturday nights. Yes, they're still doing that. The floats have changed a bit, but the music goes on.
Suenan los timbales, trompetas y un saxofón. La orquesta tiene ritmo con esta canción. Las noches son de luna, los días son de sol. Tu vida una gran fiesta, el marinador. Un pasito adelante, un pasito para atrás, y moviendo la cintura, bailaremos sin parar. Un pasito a la izquierda y otro para la derecha. Damos una vuelta entera, bailaremos sin parar. Estamos aquí, en Marinador. Todos juntos bailaremos, cantaremos esta canción. Un pasito adelante, un pasito para atrás, y moviendo la cintura, bailaremos sin parar. Un pasito a la izquierda y otro para la derecha. Damos una vuelta entera y volvemos a empezar. Un pasito adelante, un pasito para atrás, y moviendo la cintura, bailaremos sin parar. Un pasito a la izquierda y otro para la derecha, damos una vuelta entera y punto final.
Parade, of course, ends with the usual fireworks set off on the beach. Moving on to the following day, when there's water sports going on, and we go for our walks along the shore, people get their deck chairs out, and we also have a look at how progress has been with some of the building sites around Marina d'Or. This one, by the new roundabout and by this block of flats, hasn't gone anywhere since, when was it, 2019 we last looked at this? It's a bit waterlogged at the moment because there has been rain recently, but this building site looks the same as it did 3 years ago, and it's obviously going nowhere, which can't be said for the one down by the campsites. Yes, at Ribera de Cabanes, Torre la Sal, however you like to call it. These flats are going on well, and we'll report on those in a few months when I expect they may well be finished. So there we are, that's the Chinchilla Bridge, that's the pub down below in the daylight, the Dragon, and this is our favourite place in this area.
Su nombre es acción y se enfrenta a los peligros, lucha con el corazón.
And over in Bulgaria, it's a similar story in a way, in that in 2007 I bought this plot of land with a house on it, and that's never materialised into a fully finished house either, because it started to fall apart. And to this day, it just looks like this. Now, this is the actual site from the air, looking at the possibilities here. I still have hopes for this place, and I would still like to develop at least part of it as a place to live. The part of it that I started on before COVID was what I called the West Wing. This is due to its compass setting. It is on the west side of the plot. I put a new roof on it and we boarded up the windows and doors with a view to getting a little place with a view over the courtyard. Yeah, that's the bit I call the courtyard. Needs a bit of clearing. There's the building, and to the right of it, that little flat roof, I think I can extend into there too, increase the size of the usable space. And there you see the main attraction to this plot of land. Even if the house isn't an attraction, the view across the village is. And let's look at how we can get to this west wing. You'd have to come in from the road, which is above, at a higher level than the house. And I think there's the potential to put a driveway in here down from the road to the side of the house. All this bush and dead trees and things will need clearing, and you'll need to create quite a slope along here, but I reckon that's the way to get to the house. It might be a bit of a tall order, but at least you can get building materials to this side of the house. Well, that's what I think. I'm not a builder. The original entrance up there along the footpath is the only way in at the moment, and really that's not adequate. Staying in the village of Orish and a trek over to Colin's house. We visited this a few times. Of course, he can now live there because it's a fully finished house. These goats actually belong to the neighbour, but we've shown you some goats before. They seem to be quite friendly creatures, although they did eat one of Colin's chairs. But he tells me that one night he was having a barbecue and all these little kids came along and sat down and sat with them while they enjoyed a social gathering. They belong to the neighbour, who you also see in this picture, where he's going off his own property next door with his horse and cart. And still in Orish, and you may remember Raphael, who I spoke to a couple of months ago, and he told us that he grows all his own stuff, so he invited me to have a look at his garden. He's the one who speaks loads of languages, by the way. And he's pretty self-sufficient here. He's like everybody else in the village and in most villages in Bulgaria, got plenty of land, plenty of scope to grow all your own vegetables if you know what you're doing. Of course I don't, as you must know by now. But scrolling along the bottom of the screen, a list of the things that he grows here. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but he's also got a machine which I gather is quite old, but it produces grain for him. And those of you who know more about farming and mechanical devices may understand exactly what this is. I don't know if the grain's for the chickens or just for his garden generally, but the chickens, he's got quite a few of those. I've just had a WhatsApp message, and since I was last in the village, he's got a couple of goats as well, so we'll see them on the next visit. Oh, he's also got this sticky strip to catch the flies. Hey, let's whiz off to our third country this month. We're in Poland again on the river at Gdansk, and if you've ever been there, you'll recognise this. This is a historic crane which is being preserved. It's in very good condition. You have to be a long way away from it to appreciate its size because it's huge. And all along here, along the front, there are restaurants and bars and cafes. I'd like to show you one of those, which is behind that front wall. It's actually a queue for a coffee break because it's a very nice cafe that does breakfasts and hot chocolate. The best hot chocolate I've ever tasted. Just across the square from there, there's the restaurant Jakobsen. Obviously a very artistic family or artist has created this because apart from the ornaments in the window, and I am a cat lover, everything's painted in an artistic sort of way. Every last table and chair, the ceilings, the floors, the walls, the entrance to the toilet looks like this, and the girl behind the bar who's hiding, she's our waitress, is hiding amongst all these other painted items. A really nice place, but the food was excellent too. And this is the Museum of the Second World War. It's on the river again. It's on the opposite side of the river to the apartment we stayed in, and I quite often show you the apartments that we get to stay in. That building across the river there, that's where we stayed. The apartment was very nice and modern. It's, once again, like previous ones we've stayed in, was furnished from IKEA. Had a balcony. It's a development with gardens and stuff below. And the apartment had a bedroom and a living room that were only separated by this central partition. On the living room side, the TV and other little bits of furniture and displays. On the bedside, there's a carpet on the wall. Looks as though they're growing something on it, but it was just carpet. Wardrobes were IKEA's tallest, 2.4 metres. Neither of us could reach the top shelf or the hanging rail in this. Lots of little bits of odd furniture around the place. Then the bathroom, once again, very well done out, very European with the washing machine. That's what they do in most countries in Europe. Nice big shower and storage. Well, there was plenty, but halfway through the week we discovered some more storage that we didn't know was there. Those panels are actually doors. You push them to open, and we didn't know we had a hairdryer till halfway through the week. This towel rail is 4 sections high. Ruth could only reach the first 2. I could reach the third one, but you'd have to be 7 foot tall to get to the top of that. Lighting, all very high tech with push button remotes everywhere, some kind of home automation system we believe, but we weren't party to the information on that. Kitchen, all very modern, and again, it's very tall. Where are these 7 foot Polish people, I wonder? I could reach the second shelf in these cupboards. Ruth could only reach the first, so we had to put most of our dishes down low so that we could both get at them. Nicely equipped though, good furniture, huge fridge freezer, and soft close cupboards and drawers.
The Matthewsons. A dynasty of dealers.
It drives really well.
With a love of classics.
42,000, the ready type, the stunning car.
I'd never actually watched Bangers and Cash, but I'd heard all about it, so as we were passing through Yorkshire near the place where it's filmed, I thought we'd take a look at the garage and the auction rooms round the back. I do love looking at old cars though, and there are some really nice models here. In case you're wondering, the village is called Thornton-le-Dale. It's not that far from Pickering, where we'd been staying once. And it's not all about cars in this village either.
Don't scratch it.
This is what we all dream about finding.
18,000, thank you very much. Yeah, well done.
This is the centre of the village. There's a little ice cream truck there, as you may have noticed. And there's some very quaint shops which we walked along. All sorts of things going on here. These little sort of trolleys outside which have got their goods on display. We're not going to go into any detail with this. If you like this sort of thing, Thornton-le-Dale, look it up on the map. Google map it. The park here is very interesting as well. It's a nice atmosphere. We always like to go for a walk in the park. Oh, and we're not far from the coast, so there's fish and chips here. Oh, and chocolate. Let's look in the park. A nice big lake, and somebody's been hand carving various ornaments around the place. This one's got his owl clothes on. Back in Chester at the bus interchange, and we haven't come here to catch a bus, we've come here for a coffee break. It's central to the transport links in Chester, so I often come here, meet friend Colin and anyone else who wants to go for a coffee with me. It's handy to catch a bus. It's near the train station. It's got some fantastic cakes, even though it's only on the scones this day. We should have a look on the cake counter and have a quick look and see what they've got. And that's our coffee break number 1. I'm sure we'll get another one before the end of the programme. If if you've been watching my videos for a while now, I think you'll have got the hang of the sort of places that I like to get out to. Marinas, perhaps not so much. It's the appeal of the water, and the marina is normally by the sea, and there's normally a beach. So yes, we've been to Gdynia in Poland before, we've been to the marina, but right by there was this beach, and it wasn't particularly busy. The birds were probably the most activity there was that day. And this beach is a good place for you to take the kids, because as you can see, they've laid on loads of activities in a playground, and I'm sure in the peak of season this was quite busy. One of the other things you probably realise that I go looking for is railways, particularly heritage steam railways, miniature railways, model railways, and that sort of thing. And you may think that this visit to Saltburn by the Sea and the Yorkshire coast was about the railway, but unfortunately it wasn't running when I went there. It could be that it's one of the weekend ones. There's quite a few that only run at weekends. But it did lead me to this Saltburn Valley Park, which was just a nice place to go for a walk. I followed the train track just in case there was something else to see, but in general I walked through parks and lakes and by rivers, and there were promises of Italian gardens and such like, but I just spent about an hour here, and I noticed that now the schools are back, this is a place where they bring them on field trips. Okay, so there's a field and this is a trip. Good. Inevitably, when I'm back in Britain, I'm going to return to the Wirral, because that's where we live now, and this is one of our favourite spots at New Brighton. It's very windy here most of the time, and one day I was just watching the seagulls, because they have a fantastic way of gliding through the air, so effortless. Sometimes wish that I could fly. And perhaps not, but yes, very delicate. But I was here for a purpose. Tilt camera down, and there it is. There's a food fair on. Been to this in 2019, I think it was, but there hasn't been one since lockdown, so it's good to see it back. You may not believe this, but I managed to walk past all that food and drink and not buy or eat anything, not even a sample. Mind you, it was a bit expensive at most of the stalls. Did actually see a Polish baker, which I'm going to check out at some time in the future. Anyway, we had a cup of coffee at Cafe Creme, which is it creme or cream? I think it's cream. That is by Marine Lake in New Brighton, and we've been there before, so I won't show you that again. But across the road from there, there's the outdoor fun fair, and we managed to catch this at a time when the kids were off school, so you can see a few of them enjoying themselves. Well, that was noisy, so I think we'll go to Wild Shore. Wild Shore is actually on Marine Lake itself. It's a sort of floating aqua park, and if I wasn't so scared of water and unable to swim, I'd find this quite entertaining. It seems that you can wander all over it and jump off and slide down things into the water. Fabulous. The area is overlooked by a number of cafes and restaurants, so the kids can go and play on there and their parents can go and have a drink or a meal. Also on the lake is a zip wire that I discovered, I think it was last year, but didn't realise what it was used for at the time. So there it is, and here's someone who's showing you how it's used. This time we were in New Brighton in Cafe Cream. We looked across the road and saw that Wetherspoons was being rebuilt and was due to open August 2022. I think that was a year too early, because if you look at the building now, it's been knocked into the pub next door, but behind it's structurally unsound. I think it's going to take them a while to get that one finished. These new Merseyrail trains are not on the tracks yet, so I took one of the old ones down to Chester Station. A few years ago there were some changes in the companies that operate here. Transport for Wales took over from Arriva, they are doing well here, and Avanti West Coast, they took over from Virgin. Northern Rail are also here in Chester, but we'll be dealing with them later. This is, I think, classed as Little Neston, and it's Net's Cafe. We've been here before. We often stop for coffee, and it's on the Wirral Way. You can cycle or walk along here and stop at Net's. In Birkenhead, where we head next, there's a workhouse until it became St Catherine's Hospital, and then that was demolished in 2013 and a brand new health centre was built. Some bits remain of the old building, including the entrance archway, but inside, well, it's extremely nice. There's a modern health centre, the church and some of the other historical parts are being kept. Its own pharmacy, nice gardens where I was able to sit and wait while my wife had an appointment, and great hospital premises. There's a tendency for these places to no longer be called hospitals, they've become health parks. Very grand. A couple of miles out of Birkenhead, and this is the Bidston Hill Lighthouse. Flying the drone up to the height of the lighthouse allows you to see the kind of views you get here. Bidston Hill has views all around the Wirral, and of course if you look one way you get to see the North Wales coast and the hills, and if you look the other way you get to see Liverpool and a variety of places in between. These pictures were taken on one of the hottest days of the year, a couple of months back now, and we'd seen smoke coming from the top there, but by the time we got there it had all disappeared. There were still 2 fire engines though by the lighthouse, so obviously they put the fire out. Our family came to live in the Merseyside area in the 60s, and at the time Liverpool was famous for having a pub on every corner. Well, that's not the case anymore. Lots of it's been redeveloped. There's new housing and shopping centres. But here's a pub that's still here. I don't think you'll be going for a drink here though. Kind of something missing from it. I guess this will get knocked down in the end as well. It's right by Bankhall Station, which is on the Merseyrail line between Liverpool and Southport. Over in Whitby, North Yorkshire, the Magpie Cafe has a picture of itself on the wall inside. A very realistic picture, as you can see. That's what it really looks like. Last month we went on the Ecclesbourne Valley Railway and we set off from Wirksworth Station without really showing you much of the station at all. So here it is. It's got a few little artefacts lying about. It's got some interesting buildings, a bookshop, gardens are very well kept, and for model railway enthusiasts, if you do a bit of modelling at home, you'll like this. There's a building which contains a number of people's layouts, and they're all sort of spaced end to end so that the trains can run from one project to another without stopping. Good idea. As you may remember from last month, this is a steam railway still, and it's still got its supply of coal. I wonder how much longer they'll be able to get hold of the stuff to run these old engines. Castellón de la Plana And this is the road we walk down. It's been much improved in the last few years, got wide pavement, cycle track and everything. The trees were always there. Castillon Station, we walk back to there from Solera and we catch a train to Oropesa. Oropesa is where our apartment is, Oropesa del Mar, and this is the Oropesa station. Trains going backwards and forwards in one direction to Barcelona and the other way it's Valencia. Once you get off the train at Oropesa station, there's a little minibus that goes around the resort known as the Urbano, and for €1 you can get to your apartment or wherever. Well, this is the nearest to home my videos are going to get. You may have seen me sitting on a balcony for the last couple of months doing this little bits and pieces spot. This is the area I'm sitting in. It's the gardens of a whole load of apartments that we have one of. We've got a balcony, it's on the ground floor, which I thought was unusual, but apparently it isn't. And the gardens are well looked after by a team of gardeners. There's a variety of plantings here, and I have a feeling, because you see little ponds and bird tables and things, that the residents also have a bit of an input into this and as to what can actually be out here. And this is our balcony, and that's where I normally sit to be talking to you. Right, let's get back on a train on the Wirral line from Liverpool Central, but this time we're going to change onto the Northern line. Oh gosh, here we are again at that Kirkdale depot. We're on our way to Ormskirk, one of the regular Merseyrail routes. Ormskirk is an interchange for getting further afield, so Merseyrail ends here. You'll see the buffers there, and then beyond the buffers there's more buffers, and the rest of the platform is dedicated to Northern Rail, and I take a Northern Rail train up to Preston and then Burnley. Oh, that was quick. We've arrived at Burnley Manchester Road Station and we've headed up to Rowley Park, and this is the Rowley Park Lake. The River Burn runs into and out of this down the waterfall. I'm guessing the water flows a bit faster than this normally down this waterfall. The teenagers who were here were actually fishing, and they, yes, did catch fish, amazingly enough. And they also came over to chat to us as we were flying the drone, which is also of some interest. In general, I found if you do get out a drone and start flying it, people gather round, so this was no exception. Just flew around the lake a little bit, and then we headed off to the location that we'd come here to Burnley to see. The Singing Ringing Tree, it's called. It's on top of a hill a few miles from the lake and obviously more elevated. Some great views from up here, and it's a piece of metal sculpture that's designed to take advantage of all the winds you get in this area. If you look closely at the construction of it, these empty pipes pointing in all different directions, so it shouldn't matter what direction the wind's blowing, you should get some noise out of it. You may be familiar with the technique. If you've got an empty beer or Coke bottle and you blow across the top of it, if you've got the knack, you can produce a musical note. Unfortunately, we didn't hear a thing this day, and Steve Bushby, my friend who took me up here, he asked around a number of the locals and they said they'd never heard it sing either. But it does, and if you want to hear it, you'll have to go to somebody else's YouTube video, I'm afraid. Some video archives now, and they're not mine on this occasion. I do spend time editing other people's images and photos and videos, and I came across this clip when I was doing just that. It's a sit-on railway at Roydon Park in Frankby-on-the-Wirral, so I was surprised that I'd never seen it before. This video is taken in 1985, I believe, but of course once I'd seen this sit-on train, and there are a number of them, one behind the other, I thought I must really go and see Roydon Park and see if this still exists. On the day that Neil filmed this, apparently this was a new engine that they were running in and testing. Now, I'm not counting, but isn't this the third lake this month? It seems to me compulsory that parks have huge lakes. This one is no exception, but of course we were looking for the sit-on railway, and I spotted this track in the woods and thought, I hear a noise coming. It sounded like a diesel, so we hung around a bit, and there it was. Diesel-hauled sit-on train, but just the one. In the days when they were steam here in the 80s, they would be one train behind another. So what's been going on? Well, this is no longer the major attraction. Sure, it still gets passengers, but these enthusiasts have got even bigger fish to fry, so to speak. then we spotted one of those trains through the trees and headed in that direction, and as we approached we could see a station area. Had 5 tracks, of which 4 were platforms. One was just a loop line to turn the engines round and put them back at the other end of the train. And so with 4 platforms and 2 tracks you can keep a large number of trains going. So they're doing here exactly what they were doing in the 80s with the sit-on trains. They're keeping the whole flow moving with one train after another. Now of course this is the kind of train that we just had our ride on, so let's get on board. Now, a railway system with dual lines, train enthusiasts would probably say there's an up line and a down line, and there certainly seems to be when you first set off, but it's more complicated than that, because you go past a train that's going the same way as you, then you cross over so that that train is on the other side. It's now on your right, and it takes a journey round a different course through the park. And for a while it's a lot of fun because of course you seem to be having a race with the other train. I'm sure they do that on purpose. So there we are, good old Wirral has come up with the train where Saltburn couldn't. And really that's all I've got time for, and I did promise you a second coffee break, so as our train is steered onto platform 4 by the electronic signalling system, I'm going to go and find the courtyard and get a cup of coffee. Well, we did go to the courtyard to try and get coffee and cake, but there was a problem with their card reader. So let's go back to Chester and into the street called Watergate. Chester is a historic place, and Katie's Tea Rooms has an entrance on the ground floor of Watergate Street, but the whole of the premises spreads out on the floors above. And we were invited to have a look around the floors that weren't in use. That would be the second floor mainly, and the architecture here of course is quite old and everything's been preserved as much as possible. A bit more than coffee and cake was on offer here because we had a voucher for, well, there's the coffee. It's not just any coffee, as they say. And there's the cakes and sandwiches and scones and strawberries and cream. And wow, a bit more than our usual coffee break, this one. And pretty filling, I can tell you. Following that, we went out on the streets. You can see the higher level rows of all the streets around here. You can also see a baby dinosaur. Well, not what I expected to see. I heard the steel drums and was attracted over here. Then I saw the parent dinosaur, presumably going on the lookout for the baby. I don't know if the woman's run off with it or what. Anyway, an interesting time in Chester city centre, which also has a city centre park. It's called the Grosvenor Park, so while we were there we took a look at that. And this was video taken just before the kids went back to school, so it's about a month old now. And the roundabout was there, of course, for a very good reason. And yes, I'm going to bring you another train now. I'm sorry about this, I seem to have gone rather excessive on the miniature railways, but I have brought you a roundabout. I don't know if you call this girl the station master, but she was doing everything from loading people onto the trains and blowing the whistle to get them away, to changing the points as they shunted trains around. And as they bring the second train into play, it seems I've overrun my half-hour slot again, so let's just call it a 38-minute slot. I'll go for 3/4 of an hour next time, shall I? We haven't had time to go whizzing over to Australia to see what Colette's got for us, so we're ending this month with some of her slides of the sunset, and I promise more Australia next month.